Hello, students. Today I will be reviewing the unit of Rome with you all. So let's get started. The first thing we want to remember is that Rome is located on a peninsula. So we live on a peninsula as well, right? That means it's surrounded by water on three sides. So as you look at this map here, this is the Italian peninsula, which is shaped like a boot. You can't miss it. The Mediterranean Sea is the major body of water that's influencing the Italian peninsula. And the Alps mountains offer protection for the Italian peninsula from invasion. The city of Rome is located on the western side of the peninsula in the center of it. Okay? So, once again, Rome is located on a peninsula called the Italian Peninsula. The Mediterranean Sea is the major body of water, and the Alps mountains also offer protection from invasion. What about the people who live in Rome? So, Rome is, like most other societies we've learned about this year, in that they have social classes. And as we've said, every civilization has social classes. Usually, you'll see like a pyramid on tests to indicate the social classes. So, at the top of Roman society, you have the patricians. Okay, they're the powerful nobility. And the way we remember that is that they're padding their pockets of money. They're powerful, they're wealthy, and they're few in number in comparison to the other groups. So the patricians are the ones who are the leaders in government. So they call most of the shots for a long time in ancient Rome. Next are the plebeians, and the plebeians, or you could say plebeians, are the ones who are the majority of the population. They don't have the wealth that the patricians have. So, the way to remember that is the plebeians are pleading for money. They're pleading for money. Then at the bottom of the social structure, you have slaves. Enslavement was not based on race during this time. In fact, most of history. Only the past 500 years did that change in the world. So, enslaved people were people who had been captured or prisoners of war, sometimes born to enslaved parents, sometimes people who owed money. So, these are your three social classes. Make sure you know who's at the top and the middle and the bottom. All right, so we first talk about Rome in the context of it being a republic or a representative government. So, representative government, representative democracy is a feature that you probably already knew about before taking this class because it's the type of government we have in the United States. So, the United States took the idea from ancient Rome. We previously learned about democracy in the context of ancient Greece because the Athenians had a direct democracy. But make sure you understand there's a difference between a direct democracy and a representative democracy. A representative democracy is one in which you elect people to represent you in government. So, a representative democracy and republic are the same thing. So, the branches of their representative democracy, we'll say branches, are the assemblies, the Senate, and consuls. And these people are elected to represent the interests of the Roman citizens. Okay, the laws of ancient Rome are the 12 tables, and these were posted in public so everybody would know what the laws were. And we'll get a little bit more into the law as we go along. So, once again, you have the Senate, the Assembly, and the consuls are your three branches of Roman government during the Republic time, at least. So, mythology is the collection of myths or stories about a specific person, culture, religion, or any group with shared beliefs. And you have learned about mythology when you've gone over Greece. And the Romans also had mythology. They are basically taking the Greek mythology, the Greek polytheistic religion, and making it their own. So, once again, polytheism means belief in many gods and goddesses, many deities. So, the mythology is used to explain phenomena, qualities of human beings, and life events. Okay, so as you can see in the picture, Greek and Roman mythology are really the same, just with different names. Okay, so the word for having multiple gods and goddesses is pantheon. That's why the temple that we'll talk about in a minute is called the pantheon, because that's where they worship their gods and goddesses. So let's go over some of the Roman gods and goddesses. And you may need to pause this for your activity sheet. So Jupiter is the chief god in Roman religion. He corresponds with Zeus in Greek religion. Um, so as you can see, you also have Juno. Juno is the same as Hera. So you could think Dr. Ruffin likes to say Juju. That's like their couple name. So Jupiter and Juno are the chief god and the wife of the chief god. Other notable deities include Apollo. Remember, Apollo is the same in both of these cultures. Apollo has the same name, while other ones change. Um, these are also your planet gods. So our planets are named after them. So Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Neptune, Mercury, Pluto, Saturn, all of these, the planets are named after them except for Earth. Um, so, a couple of ways to remember some of them. Minerva, the goddess of wisdom, a little way to remember her, Minerva, is mind. Wisdom, it deals with your mind, right? So, just think of mind Minerva. And then for Diana, the goddess of the hunt, she's a hunter, right? So, think die, okay? All right, so contributions of ancient Rome. If you all recall, I took you all on a field trip with my Bitmoji as I went to Rome and visited various places. So, once again, don't forget the Pantheon is the temple, the major temple. Do not mix it up with the Parthenon in ancient Greece. The Pantheon looks different. The front might be similar. Okay, you do have the columns because the columns are a legacy of their Greek influence, right? But in the back it's round like a pan, right? So it's a temple for their various gods and goddesses. The Colosseum, this is the place where they had entertainment. Okay, so the gladiator fights, chariot races, etc. Okay, and it has a notable feature of Roman architecture here, which we'll go over in a minute. You also need to know the Forum. The Forum is the place where everybody who was anybody was there, and a lot of the events take place there. The marketplace, as well as the posting of the 12 tables, so everyone could see the laws because everyone's going to the Forum. It's not far away from the Coliseum, so people go there to they get their entertainment, then they can go meet with people, they can sell their goods, whatever they need to do. The roads that they built still exist today. They built roads to transport their army from place to place as they were conquering other people. People could move from place to place, and they were considered to be safe roads. And of course, goods for trade. Aqueducts. Aqueducts look like bridges, but they're not for transporting people, they're for transporting water. So remember the prefix aqua is referring to water. And the arch, as I said, when you're looking at the Colosseum and looking at aqueducts, you see the arch. This is the key component of Roman architecture, just like the column is the key component of Greek architecture. So Romans take the columns and use them, but the thing that makes theirs stand out differently from Greek architecture is the use of the arch. Now we're moving on to science. Ptolemy, know him for astronomy, mathematics, geography, musical theory, and optics, but mostly for astronomy and mathematics. Then you have the fact that the Romans really were into their health. So the aqueducts brought water into the cities, clean water so people could take baths, so people could um, keep their hygiene up, which reduced disease from spreading. They had public water systems, which came the water from the aqueducts, right? And they even had medical schools. All right, the language part. Okay, so don't forget that Latin is considered today to be a dead language. That happens during the Middle Ages. But Latin is not really dead because the Latin influence is seen in many languages. So, the chart that's on the top right of the screen, you see that Latin influenced French, Spanish, Romanian, Portuguese, and Italian. And on the map, you see there's other dialects that are also influenced by Latin language. So because Rome is the center of the Roman Empire, because it is where Latin is spoken, that's why they're called Romance languages. Not because they are romantic in the way we think, but romantic as in they come from Rome. The next topic that we're reviewing is literature. And for literature, you really only need to know about Virgil. He is the writer of the Aeneid, and the Aeneid is basically like the Roman version of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. When it comes to law, and I mentioned we would come back to laws and the 12 tables later, we just need to really understand that the principle of innocent until proven guilty comes from the Romans. So just be able to associate that with the 12 tables and Roman law. Now we're moving on to conflict. So, the main conflict you need to know for ancient Rome are the Punic Wars. The Punic Wars is a series of three wars between Rome and Carthage. And as you can see on the map on the screen, Rome and Carthage are really only separated by the Mediterranean Sea. And Carthage is located in North Africa. So you can see it's right there. All right, so they're competing for trade. And the main general for the Carthaginians that you need to know about is Hannibal. So the end result, a lot of interesting stuff happened, like Hannibal invading the Italian peninsula with elephants. But the main thing you need to understand is that Rome becomes victorious at the end of the three wars, Carthage is destroyed, and Rome therefore has more trade and wealth. So the Roman Republic declines after the Punic Wars, during and after the Punic Wars. So here are the reasons: spread of slavery, migration of small farmers into cities, which leads to unemployment because the cities start to get crowded, civil war. Julius Caesar is a hero of the Punic Wars, and there's a civil war over his power. And remember, civil war just means people within the same country or empire fighting each other. Devaluation of Roman currency, inflation. The money lost its value. So it's like today, if you talk to a grandparent or a great grandparent or someone older in your family, they would tell you, well, when I was a child, you could do a lot with a dollar, or $5 was good when I was your age. But now a dollar or $5 doesn't have that same amount of value because of inflation. The first triumvirate, there were three leaders who take power. Okay. And these leaders are going to continue to like divide the people and lead to the end of the republic. And Julius Caesar, who is the key member of that triumvirate, is going to take power for himself. And because of that, the Senate is going to get angry and they're going to assassinate him. So the Roman Republic, in the face of changing social and economic conditions, succumbs to civil war and was replaced by an imperial regime, the Roman Empire. So now we're getting into the Roman Empire. So, what is the difference between a republic and an empire? A republic has elected officials, an empire does not. It has an emperor. How long do they rule? In the Roman Republic, the elected officials ruled for 1 year. In an empire, they can rule for life or until they get assassinated or overthrown, right? How do they get power? Either appointment or election, right? In the Roman Republic, but in the empire, by inheritance, so that hereditary rule we've been talking about, or by force. Okay, so we talked earlier about how the Roman Republic existed on the Italian peninsula. But now that it's an empire, it has spread its influence. You need to make sure you can identify the Roman Empire on a map. We have looked at this several times in this course, but you need to understand the extent of it. So it extends all the way as far north as the British Isles and Gaul. And it also has North Africa because remember they defeated Carthage. So North Africa, Egypt, okay? Okay, Asia Minor over here, right? This area. Okay, the Middle East. Not all of it, but key parts of it. So you notice that the trading areas are the main areas that they control. They control the whole Mediterranean trade area. So you can't trade outside the Roman Empire in the Mediterranean. So they're extremely powerful. So July is assassinated, Julius Caesar, right? So August takes power, his nephew. Augustus Caesar is the first emperor of Rome. He defeats Mark Antony, and under him begins a very important time period in Rome. The empire is unified and enlarged, okay? And once again, this is the map, right? And the imperial authority, that just means the emperor's authority, and the military are making the empire grow. But it's not easy to keep peace when it comes to changing emperors. So it doesn't mean it's war all the time because it's actually the opposite. But throughout the Roman Empire, outside of the time period of peace, there's going to be a lot of issues with emperors being assassinated and new people taking control. So it's not like the dynasties of China and the dynasties of Egypt, where you go from father to son to grandson to great grandson, etc. It's going to be a lot of changes in who's ruling. So, like I said, when Augustus takes power, that institutes the period known as the Pax Romana, which means Roman peace. So that is 200 years, 2 centuries of peace and prosperity. There's expansion and solidification of the Roman Empire, especially in the Near East. So, in those areas, the Roman Empire has become extremely powerful. So, during the Pax Romana, you had economic changes, a uniform system of currency, which is another name for money. So, now you can trade easier because everyone has the same money within the empire. We already talked about the Roman roads, right? And that's going to give them safe travel. They're going to have prosperity and stability during the Pax Romana. It also leads to social stability. So they're going back to the stability of the patricians, plebeians, and enslaved group. So they have stability and in the families as well. So social classes and families are becoming more stable. Politics, they're going to have a civil service like they had in China, where you have people who work for the government and they have certain qualifications that they must have, education they must have, and uniform rule of law. So you see this little quote I have on the slide: for duty, duty must be done. The rule applies to everyone. So everyone has to follow the laws. Now we're moving on to something that shakes up the Roman Empire, so to speak, and still has a huge influence today, and that is the new religion that begins. So we know from what I've already discussed with you all that the Roman Empire and Roman Republic before that was polytheistic. They had a pantheon of gods and goddesses, right? But from the religion of Judaism, which remember the Romans have conquered the area of the Middle Eastern area where present day Israel is located, and so during this time was also located. And there's a teacher that comes forth, and his teachings become very popular, and his name is Jesus in our English interpretation, but in Hebrew it would be Yeshua. Okay, and his followers believe that he is the Messiah, the anointed one who's come to save the people. This is a conflict because Jesus taught, once again, in the one God, the monotheistic beliefs of Judaism. This is a conflict with the polytheistic beliefs of the Roman Empire. So, this new faith that comes on the scene that we call Christianity, what do they believe? Christians believe in one God, monotheism. Christians believe that Jesus is both the Son of God as well as the incarnation of God. That means God in the flesh. So Christians believe that Jesus came to earth from heaven, was born, but had the mission to die for the sins of the people. Okay? Christians believe in life after death. Christians believe that if you um, believe in Jesus Christ, you will go to heaven. Okay? The teachings of Christianity are in the New Testament. So the New Testament is the Christian part of the Bible. Christians also believe in the Torah. They believe in the teachings and writings of Judaism. So if you see a Christian Bible, it's going to contain the Old Testament, which is the Jewish Bible, okay, and the New Testament, which is the Christian part of the Bible. And early church councils established doctrines and practices of Christianity. Was Christianity popular at first? It was popular to an extent, but it also led to a lot of um, conflict because people once again did not want to accept the teachings because it conflicted with their beliefs in polytheism. So followers of Jesus spread around the Roman Empire because they were facing persecution for their beliefs. So the religion starts to spread. And eventually people they fall in love with this religion. Okay, they fall in love with the message of Jesus Christ coming to earth to die for their sins. And it starts to spread. And as it starts to spread, even though people are dying for their faith, as being martyrs, people still become believers in this faith. Okay, because it inspires people. If someone's willing to die for their beliefs, then it must be something to that belief. So people start believing in Jesus because they see people dying and being persecuted for their faith, but not giving up. So the faith of Christianity was carried by apostles, by these church leaders, including Paul, through the Roman Empire. So as the Roman Empire declined in the West, the Western Roman Empire, the Church of Rome grew in importance, followers, and influence. So the church is becoming more powerful. Christians are becoming more powerful. Okay, the church in general at large. But the Roman Empire has weakened. So let's talk about the impact of the Church of Rome. So the Church of Rome, which later becomes the Catholic Church. Um, Remember CCC? Constantine converted to Christianity. So the Emperor Constantine becomes a Christian and makes it legal in the Roman Empire. And Christian later, the religion that divided so many people, the religion that had so many people persecuted because of their beliefs and martyred, later becomes the official religion of the Roman Empire, the official state religion, and becomes a source of moral authority. So basically, telling people what's right and what's wrong to do. Okay, so in the late Roman Empire, you start to see the Roman Empire's weakening in power because people feel more loyalty to the church, more loyalty to their faith than they feel to the emperor. The church is what's going to unify people in Western Europe, not the Roman Empire. So the Roman Empire is falling, okay? And it takes about 300 years for it to happen, but it starts to decline. So, as you can see, because of internal and external problems. And let's go through these reasons, these causes for the decline. First is the size. It's too big. It's too big to defend. It's too big to administrate. So basically, administering this type of government is hard because, I mean, imagine in Rome, you're trying to rule something going on in England. Okay, it's pretty hard because they're so far apart in distance. So it's a lot to manage. The economy. Once again, the currency is losing its value, and it's really expensive to defend this huge empire. Next is military. Army membership starts to include non Romans. So these mercenaries are fighting. They once were, taken over by Rome, but once they started spreading their influence and people's loyalties have changed, less discipline in the military, all these things are leading to the weakening. So the Roman Empire's military, the Roman army was before the example. It was what people feared, but it's becoming less feared and less respected by people. Next, moral decay. People no longer have the faith in the family, the stability in the family is decreased. People no longer believe in Rome the way they once did. Political problems, conflict within, once again, civil war, and once again, administration, weak leadership, so weak emperors. Invasion, attacks on borders from the Germanic people. The people they call barbarians are attacking them. So the Western Roman Empire has a lot of problems, right? So because of this, Constantine moves the capital of Rome from the Roman Empire from Rome. It's the Roman Empire, but he's moving the capital and changing it to Byzantium. So that's the city that we then later call Constantinople because it's named after Constantine, right? And what's going to happen in 476? You all did. You learned about this before, of course. But 476, the Western Roman Empire is no more. They no longer have an emperor. So the Western Roman Empire is no more. So we talk about the Middle Ages, what happened to them. And then the Eastern Roman Empire is going to become what we call the Byzantine Empire. So once again, the Roman Empire is gone as it was before, and the Eastern Roman Empire begins to thrive. So that's all for this lesson and review on the Roman Empire. I hope you learned something, remembered something that we have done, and that you continue to review. And please reach out if you have any more questions about this unit. Thank you.